gosh. Woo! The Chicago Bears, man, never failed to disappoint me, man. Woo! I just need a good laugh right now, man. Just got a good laugh right now, man. The Chicago Bears have named Mr. Trubisky the starting quarterback for 2019. Yeah! Chicago Bears fans right now are going crazy. Bears fans are drinking bleach right now, man. Woo! Mr. Trubisky named the starting quarterback, man. It's gonna be a long year, Bears fans. It's gonna be a long year, man. Quincy Bell Sports, man, I feel for you, man. I feel for you, man. But that is one positive. I mean, hey, Mr. Trubisky sucks against everybody else, but he knows how to show up against the Detroit Lions. Woo! But on the real side, let's be honest. I said 2 months ago that most likely Mr. Trubisky was going to be the starter. Okay, now I know I'm sitting here laughing, but let's not act like we're surprised here. You see, the reason why I said that Mr. Trubisky was going to start for the Chicago Bears is because it was just common sense. You gotta look. Nick Foles just got to Chicago a couple of months ago. He's only had like a few weeks to, get chemistry, get the time down with his teammates. And he hasn't really learned all the playbook. And he's only been in training camp in full pads for like a month. So, I mean, it was pretty much common sense that the Chicago Bears are going to start Mr. Trubisky. Also, you got to look at it from this standpoint. The Chicago Bears gave up a lot to trade up to get Mr. Trubisky. So if you're a Chicago Bears, I think it would be a little bit dumb if you just ain't give Mr. Trubisky at least one more shot to see what he brings to the table. Because when you give up as much as the Chicago Bears gave up to draft Mr. Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, but I mean, you really can't, say that, hey, we're just going to go ahead and start Nick Foles without even giving you one more chance. Okay, like, you can't give up that much for a guy, Mr. Trubisky, and, just give up on him without giving him at least one more shot. So, listen, if Mr. Trubisky starts for, the first 4 weeks and he doesn't do good, then you can just go ahead and throw in Nick Foles, and hopefully he can go ahead and save your season. But if not, if Mr. Trubisky, at least plays at least above average, then I think that you got a pretty good bargain there. So, I mean, look, Mr. Trubisky has a lot to prove. If you're the Chicago Bears, I mean, with the way that this division is, I don't think, 4 weeks starting Mr. Trubisky will hold you back. Because here's the thing. The NFC North right now, I think anybody can win it. So, I mean, if he doesn't do good against the Lions defense, that's already a red flag. Man, listen, man. You get to play the Detroit Lions week 1. You get to play, I know Borowski Productions is happy about this, man. Man, but listen. If you're a Chicago Bears fan, you got to look at it as this. You play the Detroit Lions week 1. You already know that Matt Patricia isn't a good coach at all. And Trubisky always shreds that Detroit Lions defense. So, if you are a Bears fan, this pretty much is a move that you really shouldn't be taken surprised by. You traded up so much to get Mr. Trubisky. So, I mean, it's only fair that you at least try to give him one more look. I mean, you just can't give up that much. I mean, you took this guy over to Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. So, I mean, if I'm general manager and I'm Matt Nagy, I'm saying, hey, man, I'm giving him at least one more shot. So, I mean, hey, man, Mr. Trubisky is named the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. I'm just sitting here laughing because a lot of Bears fans are sitting here acting like Nick Foles is going to save the franchise. And I was telling everybody, I was like, hey, man, Nick Foles is not going to be the starting quarterback come week 1 for the Bears. A lot of Bears fans got pissed off about that, but that's just a simple truth. So now the question is, how good is he going to do against the Detroit Lions? Because he always shreds the Detroit Lions, but against everybody else, he's pretty much dog booty. I mean, I don't know what it is with Mitchell Trubisky when he plays against the Green Bay Packers, but dude just overthrows every single wide open wide receiver I've ever seen in my life. I remember week 1 against the Green Bay Packers last year. It was like 3rd and 12, I believe. And this man had Allen Robinson wide open on a curl route. He literally dropped back, looked at Allen Robinson, looked the other way, looked at Allen Robinson one more time, and then threw it to somebody else. I swear on everything I love. It was week one versus the Green Bay Packers. I will never forget this. He had Allen Robinson wide open on the curl route, man. I think it was like 3rd and 12. He looked at Allen Robinson wide open 2 times. Nobody was near Allen Robinson, not even a soul. Nobody was even breathing on Allen Robinson. He looked at him 2 times and still threw it to somebody else, man. Still threw it to somebody else, man. And like Chris Collinsworth, like you can tell, like Chris Collinsworth was even irritated with how bad Mitch Trubisky was playing because he was like, dude, he literally circled it. But I mean, if you're a Bears fan, here's what Mitch Trubisky brings to you. Okay, you're getting a guy who has some mobility. He has a little bit more mobility than Nick Foles, which is something that is going to kind of plague Nick Foles whenever he ends up starting. Because in this day and age of the NFL, you got to be able to have a quarterback that's able to run. Like, that's something that held back Tom Brady. So, I mean, at least, if we got to talk about the positive about Mr. Trubisky, I mean, at least he can run with the football. And that's something that he didn't really do all that much last year for some reason. He ran the ball a lot in 2018. When in 2019, he didn't really run the football all that much. I don't know if it was because of injuries and things like that. So, I mean, look, if you're the Chicago Bears, and then here's another thing. So, it was literally Chicago Bears fans telling me that Mitch Trubisky was underrated. How the hell is Mitch Trubisky underrated? I don't think Mitch Trubisky should actually be rated at all, if we're being quite honest. I mean, the dude doesn't know how to read defenses, and a Bears fan tried to tell me Patrick Mahomes couldn't read defenses for a whole entire year. Okay, but that's Patrick Mahomes. At least he knew how to see the coverage and knew where to place the football. Mitch Trubisky is basically like a duck playing quarterback. I know high school quarterbacks that could go back and did what Mitch Trubisky did last season. But I understand Mitch Trubisky didn't have a great offensive line. Oh, he didn't have a great coach, didn't have a running game. But, you know, when it comes to guys like Sam Darnold, my guy Sam Darnold in New York gets considered a bust, even though he had a worse team to work with, right? But you see, we make excuses for guys that we want to make excuses for. If the Chicago Bears had Sam Darnold as their quarterback last season, I think they would have went to the playoffs. That may be a bold prediction, but I stand by it. If Sam Darnold played for the Chicago Bears, the Bears would have made it to the playoffs. I don't care if you guys want to talk about how Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts and all that other bull crap. Listen, Sam Darnold is an upgrade from Mitch Trubisky. How you going to start him over a Super Bowl MVP? They had to start him because exactly. Mitch can't throw the... But how you going to start him over a Super Bowl MVP? Because you got to understand, you guys got to understand something. This isn't your typical offseason. All right, Quincy Bell Sports. Here's the thing. This isn't your typical offseason. Teams have only had literally like 3 weeks to practice. Even Vic Fangio said that he hasn't really had enough time to, see how his inside linebacker core is going to be. So when you have a limited amount of practice time, that means most of the time you want to go with the guy who has the most experience, knows the offense the best. Nick Foles just got there. He hasn't really had, a full entire offseason to learn the playbook and learn his teammates. So, I mean, it makes pretty common sense to, start Mitchell Trubisky week 1. I said this a couple of months ago that I'm expecting Mitchell Trubisky to start. It just makes common sense. He knows the playbook. He knows a little bit more of the offense than Nick Foles. And although a lot of people say, he has familiarity with the playbook because he and Matt Nagy has some, chemistry in Kansas City. But, I mean, that's a couple of years ago. So I'm about to read the comments before I go ahead. More Chargers videos. Man, listen, I'm about to drop these last team previews. I'm not doing all 32 NFL teams. I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it, but I tried to do most of them. But starting Sunday, I'm about to go back to doing my my weekly NFL game previews for all 16 games. So you guys make sure to stay tuned on Sunday. I'm about to try to upload the rest of these videos tonight or either tomorrow, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start doing these game by game predictions. So first game, I'm doing this with my guy Houston 713 Sports, part of the Fan to Fan Network. We're going to be previewing Kansas City and Houston because he wants to come on here and defend the Houston Texans. And I mean, look, the Houston Texans have a chance, but he may turn out well. Nagy is a hell of a coach. Man, listen, I feel bad for Matt Nagy, and this is the last statement I'm gonna make before I leave. Matt Nagy was given a quarterback that he didn't want. Okay, he had to make the most. He had to take a rotten apple and turn that rotten apple into an edible apple. That's just being realistic. Now I know a lot of Bears fans like to say fire Nagy, but let's be honest. What do you expect out of Matt Nagy? I mean, like, he has an incompetent quarterback that misses wide open wide receivers. Literally, Allen Robinson was wide open on the 3rd and long, and Mr. Trubisky looked at him twice, right in the face, looked him dead in the face mask, and still threw it to somebody else. So I mean, if you're Matt Nagy, I mean, what can you do? I mean, you just can't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you can coach that up. I simply don't. I mean, like, the dude is wide open. It can't get no easier than that. And I know the offensive line wasn't all that great. I know they didn't have a run game. But, I mean, still. I mean, we can't make excuses for Mitch Trubisky. Anytime you draft a quarterback in the top 10, that quarterback is supposed to elevate that franchise. So I don't care if Mitch Trubisky didn't have a great offensive line. I didn't care if he didn't have a great running game. You were drafted in the top 5. When you get drafted in the top 5, you have to be able to overcome those obstacles. I'm sorry, you have to overcome being on the unstable franchise. You got to be able to overcome not having the best talent around you. Look at Deshaun Watson. The dude has carried Bill O'Brien on his back ever since his 2nd season in the NFL. And Bill O'Brien is basically Mark McCarthy or Chip Kelly 2.0 because Bill O'Brien at one point, believe it or not, was a good coach. A lot of people forget Bill O'Brien won the playoff game with Brock Osweiler, one of the worst free agent signings in NFL history, and won a playoff game with them. And I will always have a great amount of respect for Bill O'Brien because of that. And a lot of people who criticize Bill O'Brien don't give him enough credit for that win. And a lot of people don't even talk about how tightly contested that game was that year when they were facing New England Patriots. I know the final score says otherwise, but if you literally watch that Houston Texans versus New England Patriots divisional round game a few years back, the game was a lot closer than what the scoreboard indicated. So, I mean, look, Bill O'Brien at one point in time was a good coach in the NFL, but he has taken a step back because he got too overly reliant on Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson ever since has had to carry Houston on his back. But at the end of the day, when you're a top 10 quarterback like Mr. Trubisky, like Sam Darnold, like Josh Rosen, it doesn't matter how bad of a team you have to be able to overcome that. You got to be able to surpass that. And that's why I have no sympathy for Mr. Trubisky, have no sympathy for Josh Rosen, because at the end of the day, these guys, although they have played on some pretty bad teams, some pretty bad offensive lines, still doesn't override the fact that you are a top 10 quarterback. You were drafted in the top 10. You are projected to be a franchise caliber player. You're supposed to turn around that franchise. You're supposed to carry that. And they just weren't simply able to do that. So, I mean, you look at Mr. Trubisky, this is it for him. Because if Mr. Trubisky doesn't show up this season, I promise you he'll be playing in the XFL whenever the XFL starts back up. So, I mean, hey, man, NFL season, NFL game week starts this Sunday. I'm hyped. I'm excited because I now finally get to go back to making my regular videos. I'm about to go crazy because for those of you guys who don't know, last year when I did these game by game previews, I was only able to do like 4 or 5 games. Now that I only have to worry about online school and take these online classes, I can do all 16 games. So, I mean, I'm about to go stupid this year. And, you know, this is my 3rd year on YouTube. And a lot of YouTubers who actually grind out YouTube and put on good content, a lot of YouTubers in, like, year 3 and year 4 have the largest amount of channel growth. So, I'm expecting a big jump this year. I'm expecting this to really be my year. You know, last 2 years have been great. But year 3 this year is supposed to be my biggest year according to, you know, the YouTube projections and the YouTube algorithm thing. That. And the YouTube algorithm this offseason hasn't really been on my side. Like, last offseason was way better than what this offseason was. Like, this offseason was kind of bad. Like, after the NFL draft, you know, we got a little bit of clout there. We got, you know, a high amount of views and subscribers. But after that, you know, I had to take a week off to finish my last week of high school, and that really threw me off. So, I mean, I'm really excited about the channel this year. But Mr. Trubisky is the starting quarterback for the Bears this year. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comment section down below. Are you surprised or are you not surprised? Make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.